will run from seconds to minutes. So, which means that you can have intervention from operator, for instance. It's very important in this kind of instability to model OLTCs and OEL, over-excitation limiters. And the idea is to find the maximum loadability point in the famous nose curve. This is what we're trying to identify based only on measurements. That's the point that I want to stress here, that we are trying to identify a phenomenon that has been studied for many, many years using load flow data, load flow models, eigenvalues on Jacobians, singular values of Jacobians. But here we are talking about something that comes only from measurements, phasor measurements, not only voltage and ampere meters, but you need the phase between the voltage and the amps, the current. Okay, let me just, another basics for the nose curve. We have a two-bus system. You have let's say a Thevenin impedance and a Thevenin voltage, and the load that you want to vary to see how far you can go with this load. This is a static equation that you computed the voltage at this load bus in functions of the active and reactive power consumed in the load, and also as a function of the voltage and the Thevenin impedance. So it's a pretty nice curve that you can draw in MATLAB, and you get this very nice nose picture. This is for a unit power factor case, and here for other power factor cases in the load. So you have this three-dimensional nose. Okay, so my background here is I use the measurements of voltage and current phasors at this point here, at the load bus that you are analyzing. I use some ideas of Thevenin equivalent and impedance matching. So these are the basics of the method. Okay, this is my two-bus equivalent system. Again, this is the point that I want to find the maximum load, and I am measuring the phasors at this load point. Okay, I'm measuring voltage, magnitudes and angles of voltage and current load. So, by Kirchhoff's law, you have this equation. You have one equation, two unknowns. No way to solve, but what we want here is to find what's the point where when the impedance load, the magnitude of this load is equal to the magnitude of the equivalent impedance that you have from seen from that load to the rest of the system. When you have this matching, you are at the maximum loadability point. You are at the tip of the nose, as we say. But how come to find the two unknowns when you have only one equation? You measure, again, with a different load. Then you have another set of equations. It's the same equation, but measured over the time. Okay? In 2001, those guys from ABB came up with this VIP method, that they patented this method by Demmer, Novozel, also Koivu. They were all from ABB at that time. And they show this picture, the idea of this instability prediction is very well shown in this picture. This is the impedance plane, Suppose in the red ball you have under voltage relay operation. So a trajectory that comes from this number 1 trajectory would be tripped by this under voltage relay. There is another ball here in green that is the voltage instability region in this plane. And if the system gets a trajectory number 2, the system would enter in the voltage instability region, not being observable by the under voltage relay. So the finding is relying only on voltage magnitude to detect the voltage stability is neither helpful nor reliable, because you can have a situation that you have voltage instability with high voltages in the system. Okay, so the fundamentals here is, let's assume that this is a high voltage bus, and I am assuming here that I have a small resistance in this impedance here. Then, even assuming this, I still have 2 unknowns in this equation, where beta is the angle between the current and the voltage, the equivalent voltage. You know here in this phasor diagram, you know the magnitude of the current. You know also the angle, but you can put the current, for instance, as a reference. So it doesn't matter the angle. You know the magnitude of the voltage and the angle theta. You know theta because you are measuring the phase. How come I can find the 2 parameters? If I don't know what I do, I guess. Okay? There are methods already proposed in the literature that use least mean square, and also the Telegen principles. Those guys, the patent used number 1 method, and Professor Gubina and Gregor Vervich, they used Telegen's principle. And we came up with a different algorithm when I did my sabbatical leave in Italy, in Chesi, in Milano. And we came up with a new algorithm that I will, I don't know if I will have time, but I'll try to be very fast here to show only the idea that how we could find the 2 parameters just measuring the voltage and the current in a load that I don't know what's inside that black box, okay? Suppose you have a black box. I am the professor, you are the student now. I know the voltage. I know what is inside. And I ask my students, okay, you have to find the voltage and the resistance inside the black box. I will keep here as a just to remind me that it's 20 and 1, okay? But you have to find this. The only thing that you can do is you can change impedances at this side. And you can measure current and voltage at this black box terminal. Put number 9 ohms here, just to give a even around here. 9 plus 1, right? You don't know 1, but you will measure this 2. You will measure 2 amps and 18 volts. No uncertainty here, because you're measuring. Then you guess. Oh, this is something. Okay. I have to guess the voltage inside. I will either guess, overguess, or I will underguess. If I guess correctly, tell me, because I will bet in the lottery, right? Okay, but then you guess. Let's suppose you overguessed. You don't know yet. Well, then you put Kirchhoff's law, you find 1.5 in the impedance with the guess. Okay. You don't know if you are correct or not yet, right? Then you change the impedance here. You have on the table many resistors to change. Then let's say you decreased the resistance and put 8 ohms in this point. You measured current and voltage correctly. You keep your guess. You find out a different number, which means that you are wrong in the guess, because otherwise they will give you the same number, right? So you know that you are wrong. But you don't know yet if you are over-guessing or under-guessing. Let's say that the other student guessed under the correct voltage. He put 19. Then he made the same calculations. He got a 0.5 in the impedance. He chose the same resistance with the same gas here, and you have this new calculation. And you see here the trend is different. When you overgas and you decrease the impedance, your calculation is going down. In the other way around, when you undergas, your calculation is going up. This is all you need to correct the guess. As soon as you know this trend, if you decrease here and this one increased, you have to correct your guess up and the other way around. So you keep doing this and you find the correct answer. So we came up with this algorithm that has been, should have been patented at that time. Chesney didn't want to pay us. And some Americans did some modifications in our algorithm last year, and they patent the modifications. Sorry for me. Okay. Okay, so this is the algorithm. You estimate the voltage, you guess the voltage, you compute the X, and so on. I already described the mechanisms. So this was tested in the real data with the whole Italian network. We made, they have a nice stuff that you go to the operating center, you make a picture of the operating point, you download it to the simulator, her unattained, right? Not unattained, they call secret. And then you in the secret, as you are in a simulation environment, you can create a voltage instability problem. And we have done that. This is the characteristics of the system. We analyzed the high voltage system, the 380 kV and 220 kV. This is the load at that time. This was done in 2006, so probably the load is higher now. So all dynamics are incorporated in the simulation environment, OLTCs, OELs. And so we created a problem at the Milano area. Also, we studied at the Florence. I have time only to show some results for the Milano area. We increase the load, right? And see to test the algorithm. This is the black is let's say is the impedance of the load, and in green is the impedance of the equivalent. Okay, and you want to. This is just a zoom of this picture at the end. You want to see where they cross, because where they cross is the tip of the nose. And then as soon as you are increasing and increasing the load, every control is reacting, so you start getting an increase on your equivalent impedance. You are decreasing the load impedance because you are increasing the power consumed by the load, which means that you are decreasing the impedance, and the other way around, the equivalent is increasing. And then you measure what you want is one of the index could be the ratio between the two impedances. Then you are measuring how fast you are reaching the number 1 here. And this is the movements of the tap positions along with the simulations. You see that the taps are moving around trying to restore voltage. You are also here the OEL indicator of the secret simulator, which means that when you reach 0, you are reaching the maximum field voltage, field current at the rotor. So you see that the excitation systems are pushing up, and the OLTC are moving, and all the impedance, the system impedance is changing. And you are being able to capture that change, which is nice because you are capturing this only measuring the voltage and the currents and phasors. It has been tested with actual PMU data. It has been tested in the Tramo West in Eletronorte. It's a 230 kV radio system that comes from Tucuruí to Santarém area. People from UFPA worked together with the Eletronorte people, and they tested this real data. And also our friend, our colleague Nelson Zanai Kjetil Ulen from Norway, he also applied this methodology between it's called the Hasl corridor, which is a corridor that connects Norway and Sweden. In this case, Sweden is the load, and Norway is the other impedance. So they are trying to see. But unfortunately, no voltage collapse occur on those. Unfortunately, this is being recorded, sorry. Fortunately for testing the algorithm, but fortunately for the systems. Yeah, I forget that I am being recorded. Okay, so concluding remarks, the phasor measurements can efficiently be utilized in voltage instability prevention, in long-term voltage instability prevention, not Rodrigo's case. High sampling rates are necessary. Prediction of voltage instability in a region can be made without excessive use of communications. Sorry for you guys, communications, we don't need too much. But I will show next slide that we need you. I will show you. It's possible to propose more sophisticated control logics, which is the case that we need communications. Which is a case that in Rio, for instance, you have the great Rio. Rio is fed basically from the 500 kV lines that comes from Cachoeira Paulista to Nova Iguaçu and to, here, I forget the name, San Jose, via Angra nuclear. So this is the main feeder, feeder to the Rio area. Then we could use the algorithm here, the voltage and current, but in this case we have another feeding area from Belo Horizonte that we could also take into account. In this case, we need communications because you have 2 points far away. And then we should concentrate this, have a multi-port Thevenin. I still don't know how to solve this problem. I just putting here food for thought. That's it. Let's move because I still have time, right? How many? How much? Oh, it's okay. So the second one is the transient stability. How can you use phasors for out-of-step protection? We have a lot of protection guys here. I hope you will acknowledge this. This was done with the people from Uruguay. Those two, I had 2 students, very smart students, protection specialists from UTA. UTA is the company that rules the electric sector in Uruguay. They have distribution, they have transmission, they have generation. It's a small country. You can see here from the peak load. It's a very small load, 1.7 gigawatts. 80% is here in the south, in the Great Montevideo, the capital, and also the resort beach areas. Punta del Este, right, is this area. So 80% the load is here. So they have a generating capacity very well. And they have, at that time, they didn't have the Brazilian connection here. They have a HVDC link now, 500 megawatts. But when we did this study, they didn't have that. But they had a connection with Argentina in the 50 hertz. So it's just AC interconnection. They import a lot of power from Argentina. And this is the problem for them when they have these two lines, the 500 kV lines, out of service. And then they have a big problem. Because you can see here, you have very few red lines in this graph. So they have very few connections with Argentina. So from time to time, they have to put one of those out of service for maintenance, but unluckily, they can have an outage in the other one. Okay, and this is a big problem for them. So, but they have thermals in the south and hydros here in the Uruguay River. This can lead to a complete blackout. They have already faced this. What they do, they load shed. They have a very high load shedding in the area, but they keep the system together. They have this, I think it's 150 kV lines that stay on, but they have to cut a lot of load in the south. But the system remains connected south and north. I will use this as a benchmark for loading shedding comparison. Okay, this will be my, okay, how can we do, if we can do better, splitting the system in two islands, maintaining stability in both systems. In the north offshore, because they will be connected to Argentina, no problem. The problem is in the south. The island in the south, which is the big load. And so the idea was, okay, let's split the system. Let's open the 150 kV lines and see if we can be fast enough with the separation and see if we can shed less load than what they used to do. I will jump this, sorry guys, because I don't have too much time. But out-of-step protection, when you have unstable oscillations, you have to split this. You have the old out-of-step protection done with conventional distance relays. Okay, when you have this is the impedance chart. You have a line here being protected. You have the blinders. When you have a stable swing, you do the trajectory does like this. When you have unstable swing, the trajectory goes like that. In this case, you have to block the protection. In this case, you have to trip. Okay, this is the electrical center. This is another picture. Then you have to measure this angle because this is the trajectory point. And when this angle is reaching 180 degrees, you are reaching an unstable oscillation. So if you measure this angle, you can decide what to do. So strategy 1, strategy 0 is what they do. They don't split the system. They cut a lot of load. They remain with the 150 kV lines connecting south and north. The strategy 1, we split the system based on the out-of-step protection, relying on local signals for the out-of-step protection. And the other one, we use synchrophasors. Okay. This is the strategy in operation, not today. This is old, 5 years old, 5 years ago. The strategy 0, and a very large amount of load is cut. I will show the numbers at the end. Strategy 1 is applied to pre-selected network locations, preferably near the electrical center. Island scheme is performed by installing out-of-step functions in the pre-selected locations. So these two lines, all these 150 kV lines are opened when you have this opening of this 500 kV lines. And less amount of load is shed. I will show you also the number at the end. And we came up with this strategy that was not ours. It's Cell people. We're talking about Cell. They have this patent, Guzman. And we studied that patent, and we applied the patent in the Uruguayan system. And the idea is the following. You measure, this is we chose, they chose because we will measure here the voltage at the Palmar, which is a very important substation at the north, in the Montevideo substation. So you are measuring the phasors of those two substations. So I am measuring the angle. Let's say delta is the difference of the two angles of the voltage on those two substations. And I make the first and the second derivatives of this difference. And I will use this as information in order to decide what to do. I won't have time to do this. Here you are measuring the angles, you are doing first derivative, second derivative. So you put the speed and acceleration graph. You have set areas, reset areas, areas that should not work, areas that should work. For instance, near you have a very small variation, you should not work. And then you have blinders on top of this area. So this is a great difficult to do. It took a lot of time from those guys in order to came up with this blinders. And the idea is when you have an unstable oscillation, the trajectory will be like that. We will leave the blinders. When you have something like this, it will go off the blinders again. You should trip. And you have a stable oscillation. This will go spirally and come back. You should not trip. So this is the scenario, the study case. The scenario under study is, as I said, one of the 500 kVs was out and the other one was out of service for maintenance. The other had a three-phase fault. In the 500 kV, the remaining 500 kV line near the Montevideo end, the clearance time we used were 3 cycles for the near end, 4 cycles for the far end. This is what they usually do for simulation studies. And this is the separation. You can see here two frequencies, the north and the south islands. And here is the trajectory. Those are the blinders. This is the speed and acceleration chart. And this is how one of the simulations work. And then you have to trip in point B, for instance. And then this is the comparison. Strategy 0 is our benchmark. Let's say 100% is 600 MVA. Time is over. 37:41. I'm close, huh? Strategy 1, using splitting the system, but based only on conventional out-of-step out-of-step protection based on distance relays. You cut this amount, and based in using the phasors, you cut less. Oh, this is just to give you an idea. This is 1/3 of the load of Uruguay. Okay, conclusions. 2 strategies for controlling islanding of Uruguayan power system were presented, only using local measurements and the other using synchrophasors. Simulations results show that controlling islands of the north-south tie with fast load shedding with both strategies performed significantly better than current utility practice. The necessary load shedding was reduced. I said that. And this is most important. The strategy that uses synchrophasor measurement is more attractive since it is able to curtail less amount due to its predictive predictive capability. However, the strategy that uses only local signals should not be discarded, since it provides a simple and cost-effective solution. It also has the advantage that it can be implemented with current protection system already. So you keep that as a safety net. If you lose signals, for instance, so you use what you have. So you have 2 layers. So for further reading, in the first topic, we have this paper, those 2 transactions papers. And for the second topic, I recommend you read this paper. Okay. Thank you. And for our colleagues from outside, this is just to put some water in your mouth that you should stop by in Rio for a couple of days. Okay? This is Rio. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Glauco. Now we pass to question. Pass to audience, please. Professor Felipe from Brazilian University.
Congratulations for a very nice presentation. The Brazilian TSO has recommended to maintain the zone 1 of the protection, distance protection. The TSO has recommended to maintain this zone 1 active, enabled. I have this is a curiosity, because I don't know how such a recommendation would impact on this kind of study when we consider the out-of-step tripping, because it seems that even when we have a stable swing, and even if the trajectory passes through the zone 1 distance protection, we will trip the line, but it is a stable swing. Do you have any comment on that? Because I heard that they have recommended this kind of procedure.
Yeah, I can't comment on that in terms of the strategy they use. But they looks like they are being overly secure, right? But you are correct. They can trip in a stable oscillation. I don't know why they do that. I really don't know. I have no information why they're doing this. Sorry.
Thank you.
Any other question? I have a comment. Normally in Brazil, we have some problem like fire below transmission line. How the problem can be modeled according to your methodology?
You mean the fire?
Yes.
Under the... yeah. I don't know how we would model this. Yeah, the fire will... okay, the fire will... You make a short circuit, probably. So you will start studying after the short circuit. But I don't care what was the cause of the short circuit. So it could be a fire, could be a failure in the spacers or in the dielectric, right? We don't care. In our case, we don't care about the cause of the short circuit.
It's different from the problem of loss of stability. Out of step is different. It's a different problem.
No. I think this is uncorrelated because the short circuit can lead to an unstable problem or to a stable problem. We don't know. So we have to study you have to simulate in this case, right? And so I don't think it will be a problem. So,
Dr. Rodrigo, please.
Okay, Glauco, I feel I have to make it up to you because, I mean, don't tell GTO, but I'm looking forward to a voltage collapse in Norway. What I wanted to ask you is, you always call the framework in which you develop the first part of your talk, you always refer to Thevenin equivalent parameters. But in the case of if the premises for calculating a Thevenin equivalent are that the network is linear and you have to precisely know, the impedance and the voltage sources are ideal. The power system, of course, is very different from, or these premises do not hold on the power system. So my question is, should it be considered as a pure Thevenin equivalent, or is it based on Thevenin's ideas, but it's not exactly a Thevenin impedance equivalent?
okay, thanks, Rodrigo, for bringing this point, because it gives me the opportunity to say a little bit more about this, and also give me the opportunity to deny me what I've been talking for the last 10 years. I had a conversation with some people that we should stop saying that this is Thevenin impedance and Thevenin equivalent. This is inspired by Thevenin, but the impedances that you find and the equivalent, the impedance in front of a voltage, two equivalents. But doesn't matter if it is the Thevenin. I don't care. I just care if the two impedances are matching. If they are matching at the Thevenin impedance or not, I don't care right now. So I am stopping saying Thevenin parameters. This has been, I am trying to convince some people, especially my co-author, that it's not the Thevenin impedance, it's an equivalent. And so what you just need to know is if the two impedances are getting close to each other. Because if they are getting closer, so you are sure, this I can be sure, that you are reaching the maximum loadability point from that bus. So this is what matters. But thanks for bringing this. This is an important point. Nelson.
Between two sources, synchronous sources, you have 90 degrees difference for maximum transfer if it is a pure impedance. If you have one source supplying a resistive load, maximum transfer of power is 45 degrees. When Jetil did that with Hasley corridor, you have the whole Norwegian system on one side and the whole Sweden plus Finland on the other side. So everything is approximate. When you did it for the Electronorte to Curuí against on that Tramo Norte, as it is called, that is a resistive...
Tramo-Oeste.
Tramo-Oeste. There was a resistive load at the time. I don't know how it is now. So that would be 45 degrees because it is a nearly a resistive load. I don't know what kind of other loads, if they have mining there or something, I don't know. But when you do in Hasley or other Rio and all that, it's generators against generators on the other side. So it's a hybrid measure. Yeah. And I don't know how close this ends up being to this impedance matching or...
Yes. As I said, the voltage collapse did not happen in the Hassel corridor. That could see if the having sources both sides, it would work or not in field. But this can be done in simulation. This is a good point to research. I haven't done that using also, we can have feeder if this distributed generation. This was a question in the panel last year. Not last year, this general meeting was a question that the guy said, oh, what happened if this penetration of the JD at the load side? And then that was a question for Costas. And he didn't know actually what to answer. I don't know. I don't know if they will. Yeah, I don't know. But it's a good point. Yeah.
A good discussion, but I have to finish this session. I would like again to thank Dr. Glauco for the presentation and to accept to participate to this event. And it's interesting theme. And so I finish again.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I think I will stay here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then I conclude the talks on the invited speaker. Then we switch to power system 1. Dr. Glauco will be the chair of this session.
Okay. Okay. We don't have breaks between the sessions, and we have 3 paper presentations. The first speaker just left the room. This paper by Rodrigo Ramos.
Oh, he just went to the gym, will be back soon.
Okay. And you forget to tell her, right? Okay, but let me introduce them.